Good evening and welcome everybody, those who are joining us in person here at our beautiful downtown historic Summerside City Hall Council Chambers, and those who are joining us online. We have three meetings that follow one after the other. It will appear as though we're just doing one meeting, but there are actually three meetings throughout this evening. So I'll begin by calling to order the first meeting of February 3rd, 2026, the meeting of Planning Board of the City of Summerside here at 5:31 p.m. I would call for a mover and a seconder to approve the Planning Board agenda from members of Planning Board. So move Councillor Trenholm, second Councillor Doiron. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, changes, revisions? Hearing and seeing none. The Planning Board agenda will proceed as before you. We begin each one of our evening meetings here at the City of Summerside by acknowledging that the land upon which we're gathered is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Abogway is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who've occupied this island for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. At this point, I'd ask any member of council to declare a conflict of interest with respect to any item on the Planning Board agenda this evening. Seeing and hearing none, we will move on to the recommendation for mobile sales establishment Punjab Flavours on Wheels, and I'll hand it over to our trustee chair of Planning Board, Councillor Doiron.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Mobile sales establishment application for 60 Water Street. We did briefly hear an application from this same operator last month, but we're back here again with an alternative location, which we sort of discussed at that meeting as well. So the purpose of the application is to allow a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavours on Wheels, to operate at 60 Water Street, which is the Baywalk parking lot right across from Staples. The background: Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh applied for a mobile sales establishment license at 60 Water Street, weather permitting. The proposed hours of operation are 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Sunday. Mobile sales establishment means a business located in a motorized vehicle or movable structure that is towed or moved by a motorized vehicle, and where all the goods, wares, or foodstuffs that are offered for sale are contained entirely within the motorized vehicle or movable structure, but does not include a lunch truck. Under Section 3, the City of Summerside Licensing Bylaw CS21, the bylaw states the following. Mobile sales establishment license. A, any person or company seeking a license to operate a mobile sales establishment in the city shall make application therefore to the council. B, licenses may be granted for a mobile sales establishment to conduct business on a maximum of 2 locations in the city, and each application shall be accompanied by a letter of permission from the owner or owners of the property on which the mobile sales establishment will be located. C, council shall allow or refuse the application based upon considerations of safety, desirability, impact on established businesses in the city, public convenience, and such other considerations as it deems appropriate. D, council may attach terms and conditions to the approval of the license if granted, including but not limited to hours and days of operation, health code requirements, litter control, and approved locations. E, the license for a mobile sales establishment shall be valid for the calendar year in which the application is made only. A new application is required to council for each calendar year. And F, no appeal shall lie from a decision of council respecting a mobile sales establishment license. Staff comments. In addition to the license being sought, the applicants have requested permission from the city, Community Services Acting Director Robbie Rankin, to operate their mobile sales establishment on city-owned land at 60 Water Street, the Baywalk parking lot. The exact location of the mobile sales establishment on the property will be determined collaboratively by the city and the applicants. Recommendation: city staff support the application received from Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh to operate a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavours on Wheels, at 60 Water Street, property owned by the City of Summerside. The Planning Board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision, and that will take place later this evening at our special council meeting. The Planning Board recommendation, the mobile sales establishment application from Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh to allow a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavours on Wheels, to operate at 60 Water Street, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from Planning Board. Councillor Trenholm. Are there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Councillor Doiron. So the location has changed. I'm wondering, the first application that came through had indicated that they wanted to open now, basically, or as quick as possible and run almost, it sounded like, throughout the year. And I've been thinking about it ever since that application had come through, because food trucks don't tend to operate within the city of Summerside throughout the year. And I personally have some issues with either starting to allow that to operate 12 months of the year, knowing we have current operators, owners, taxpayers that pay to run buildings and brick and mortar shops, and then I just think it's not a level playing field, and it concerns me a little bit that we're opening up that window. I just curious thoughts, I guess, or of others, but yeah, I do have some concerns. We have operators that are trying to make a go of it every day with brick and mortar operations, and then you just allow, not fly by night, but ones that don't have the same expenses and so on that those ones would have. So that concerns me a little bit. I don't know, there's no reference to it in this, and I'd be much more comfortable if our food truck operators had a period of time to operate within city limits, as opposed to just year-round and free-for-all.
Thank you. I could almost say ditto, because those thoughts were going through my mind. So this removes the first application for Green Shore? Great, I'm pleased with that. But I do, like Deputy Mayor, have concerns that we're opening this up to a 12-month, could be a 12-month operation. And we do have people out there that run on restaurants and paying good taxes, trying to keep people employed. I have no problem with the food trucks, but I think there should be a time limit on them. 6 months, 8 months, whatever, but not a year. Thanks.
Just a question on that. It is a calendar year. So I guess my question is, and I should know, I drive by all the time, but are the other two at this location, they don't run through the winter? No. Okay. But they could, because they applied in last spring, and it's a 12-month calendar. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I also just want to be on the record. I'm certainly not against the food vending trucks. I think they add to the community. But I also have heard different times from people that, just as Deputy Mayor has spoken to, that have buildings, they do renovations, they do a lot of upkeep and, all kinds of things. I think, they're paying a lot of longer term debt, those kinds of things. And I think we really need to just be very aware of that, not to be unwelcoming to food trucks. I think they add a great atmosphere, but I also think that we have to make sure that there's something a little bit more beneficial, that people go long-term in a stationary building. So I just want to say that as well. I agree.
Okay. So we will be making a decision on that at our special council meeting later this evening. So we'll leave it. No, we have to vote as a planning board first. Let's do that. But it'll still go to council. So we have one member absent, Councillor Adams. So the members present, Councillor Trenholm, myself, and Mayor Kutcher. All members of planning board in favor of moving this to council later on, say aye. Aye. And there are none against. So just to reiterate, the support, for lack of a better term, from planning board does not necessarily indicate a decision. It's just we move it forward. So we'll discuss again later on this evening, and council will make a decision. And back to you, Your Worship.
Great, thank you, Chair Doiron. With that, we'll adjourn our planning board meeting here at 5:40 PM. And if council so pleases, we'll just roll into our next meeting, our committee of the whole. So with that, I'll call to order the committee of the whole meeting here at the City of Summerside of February 3rd, 2026. First, I would ask for a mover and a seconder with respect to the agenda. So move, Councillor Snow, second, Councillor McColeman. All in favor, changes, all in favor? Any changes or revisions? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the agenda as before you. This time, any member of council can declare a conflict of interest with respect to any item on the agenda tonight. Seeing and hearing none, we will move on. We'll now move into committee reports and recommendations. For members of the public, so that they are aware, we have 10 committees here at the City of Summerside, notwithstanding the Planning Committee. And tonight we have 5 committees reporting back. I think there are 4 updates and 1 more detailed discussion. So with that, I will go to those chairs who have indicated that they are going to present a quick update for their committee. And again, just for members of the public, sometimes the committee meetings do not align necessarily with the committee of the whole meeting. So if there's a committee that hasn't met in the short time in between now and the last meeting, they wouldn't have an update. So with that, I'll start with Chair of Finance, Councillor MacDougall. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good news is I don't have a report tonight, so, but the staff have been really busy over the last month or so preparing for our budget process, which is starting tomorrow evening. So we start the job of putting square pegs in round holes, and so that's basically my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With that, I'll hand it over to Chair of Bylaw and Governance, Councillor McColeman. Councillor?
January, they're working on procedural bylaws, vacant and unsightly bylaw research and review, and they've entered into, I believe, what they're calling or referring to as Q2, second quarter, and at that point, they will be bringing some of this information that has been reviewed and researched back to the committee, and I believe that's going to take place very early March. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With that, we'll move to the Electric Utility Governance Review. Chair Morrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring council up to date a little bit on, so we've been meeting approximately the last year, once a month or more, and we're getting closer to bringing something to council. I suspect that we'll probably see something to discuss. It'll be late winter, early spring, so in the next couple of meetings, we should have something here, and hopefully it's a little bit of information for everybody, and we can make some decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. With that, a brief update from our Chair of SEED, Seniors Equity and Engagement Directive. Councillor Trenholm.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so we've met since we've met as a council. We've had a public input session, so we had 32 people attend, so it was in the morning and the afternoon. We also had a survey circulated, and it's still available, so if anybody is listening online or they have yet to have their survey submitted, the survey will identify whether the representatives of the community feel that we're meeting our needs in terms of the goals on the committee, and if they have any other recommendations. That's open until February 23rd to send it in. I just looked in my mailbox and I got another one today, so thank you. And by all means, and if anybody in the community wishes to call me, my number, which I have written down, of course, 902-786-6994, or my email address can reach me if you have any ideas. So that's essentially it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Trenholm. And just a quick note as well, Councillor Adams is unable to join us tonight. She is under the weather and not feeling great, so we're wishing her a speedy recovery. And we've prefer that if councillors or mayor are sick and coughing everywhere, that they look to stay home if possible. With that, I'll hand it over to our Deputy Mayor and Chair of our Downtown Transformation Team, Deputy Snow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, fellow councillors, you'll all have received a package that I dropped to you just before the start of tonight's meetings. Basically, in the package, there's the implementation committee recommendations. Also in there are the overall downtown recommendations and the slideshow that was presented back in May. So the implementation committee, which exists of myself, Councillor McColeman, Councillor Morrison, and Councillor Doiron, have met. We've went over the recommendations that were brought forward to the implementation committee, and from there we sort of shortlisted the initial steps moving forward. We did it intentionally with shorter actionable items, with the intent that the overall documentation will remain a living document that implementation committee can continue to go back on and pull future recommendations from to move things along. In the past, there's been several downtown revitalization committees that happened that struck some significant work and very good recommendations. But it's the belief that there were so many recommendations that it was probably overwhelming and hard to get off the ground. So the intent of this is to have short initial recommendations that are actionable and achievable and impactful. So here's a quick overview. So 2026 Downtown Transformation Implementation Committee initial recommendations. In 2024, a community-based engagement strategy was kicked off through 3 specific project teams. The goal was to explore opportunities to revitalize downtown, strengthen economic activity, and reimagine public spaces. With local leaders, community members, and subject matter expert, recommendations were brought forward to be reviewed by the implementation committee comprised of Councillors McColeman, Doiron, Morrison, and myself. Below are the initial recommendations being presented for consideration by the implementation committee. So under the transforming our built environment, short term, the implementation committee is recommending significant investment in creative rest, installation of artistic seating, and transform functional elements into opportunities for rest, interaction, and expression. So through art, seating, and other elements in the downtown, create areas that people can sit, rest, and spend time in our downtown. Another short-term improvement, large murals and art projects. So significant investment was last year with some art in 2025's budget. We've seen some initial projects in the downtown. If you recall the project that's on the side of the fish plant, that's a significant project that happened. There's other funding that is being rolled out now by the I'm drawing a blank. Lori and her group call for culture, call for future projects. So there is funding already in there. We're looking to continue on that and find ways to enhance and beautify our downtown. Long term, the recommendation is to look at one-way angle parking on Water Street. The implementation committee would like for tech services to look at options for traffic flow and designs to turn water from Central to Granville Street into one-way with angle parking to add additional parking spaces. And also, this falls under other short-term projects. You'll see it again under one of the small business activation. So it's been a item that continued to pop up as we met with the various committees, that the either perception or realization that downtown has limited parking, and it's the implementation committee recommendation that we look at ways to, one, increase parking, and then in turn will help the businesses in the downtown. So those are the ones under transforming our built environment. Under small business activation, short term, Downtown Summerside mobile app. This is already an option through the Greater Summerside Chamber of Commerce. The reason why we have it in here is to bring it to realization. A lot of businesses and people that were business operators that were involved in the committee had brought this forward as a recommendation. The chamber immediately reached out to us saying this is something we already have and utilize. So bringing that to the forefront today is to get existing businesses, people that aren't on the app or using the app, to realize. Under long-term, we are back to that one-way angle parking. So this is one that small businesses in the downtown continue to discuss, saying that there's issues with parking. So we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can as a city to improve and create more parking for businesses and those that are frequenting those businesses. Special teams projects, short term, so creation of a downtown incentive program in cooperation with economic development, using existing tax and electrical incentive program to target key business attraction to the downtown core. Over the years, it's been asked, requested, insinuated that downtown is missing certain key businesses. For one, an example would be a grocery store in the downtown. It is our recommendation that through economic development, we create a program to target those key businesses that we would like to see in our downtown that cause our downtown to continue to thrive. Rent subsidy program for startup and key business attraction. So similar to the first one is creating a program to look at subsidy options for those key businesses that we are looking to attract to our downtown. And third, completion and possible implementation of a long-term vacancy bylaw. Councillor McColeman earlier referenced the work being done by Bylaw and Policy Committee. And this fits really nice with the existing work that we're doing, and we believe this will see a positive impact in the downtown. Long-term, so waterfront events ground. Recently, due to either chance or luck, we've moved our Canada Day operations into the downtown, which has been a huge success and has seen many positives in the downtown. We are asking that we look at possible options for a long-term events ground in the downtown area, a place where people can gather, music, have a number of events, place for people to get together and spend time in the downtown. We've recently seen several apartment buildings built in the immediate downtown. As people continue to live, work, and play in the downtown, these spaces will continue to be highly utilized. And the last long-term option for the special teams project was to look at marina expansion. So in cooperation with the Port Authority and existing marina, look at expansion options for the marina. So the current marina is pretty much at capacity year over year. Many Summerside residents, people that travel to the island, are taking up docks and spots in other marinas around the island, and it's one that we think our beautiful waterfront, the more people you have, like I said, living, working, and playing in the downtown, the better off it is for all business. So the implementation committee recognizes the extensive work, effort, time put in by the three committees and the members. The Downtown Summerside recommendation document is meant to remain as a living document that the implementation committee recommends a yearly review, future implementation exercise to be completed to ensure that other recommendations will be considered and implemented. We purposely have kept the recommendations to a short list to allow them to be implemented in a reasonable time frame. We feel the recommendations being presented are reasonable, actionable, and impactful. That is the initial recommendations from the Downtown Committee. All the other recommendations that are that were brought forward by the three various committees, so the three committees being transforming our built environment, small business activation, and special projects team, are in the other documents that you've received.
Thank you, Deputy Snow. Open the floor to members of council for comments, questions, and discussion. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I just have one quick comment. Everything in here looks great. I'm just curious about under the transforming our built environments, under the short term, under urban improvements, when you talk about large murals and art projects, is that flowing through the public art policy that we have implemented? I just think when it comes to something like that, it's important to keep it consistent for what the city is looking for. And if we kind of flow outside of that, you get really just anything you want, rather than making sure that it's very consistent with where we're going as a city.
Yeah, so the intent would be to flow through the already existing city channels and make sure that, I don't know if consistent is the word with art, because art is subjective, but yeah, to have some consistency on how we implement our art projects in the downtown.
I don't see any other further comments or questions, Deputy Snow. So with that, I'll be brief, because I could talk about the downtown for an hour here, and I don't want to keep everyone all night. But I'm really excited by the work that you have done, by the members, the work that the members of the public have done. Those teams were a variety of different people from all walks of life in our community. And the work that the committee here at council has done and is doing and looking to do more of. Health and vitality of any city or community can be measured on the health and vitality of its downtown. That is sort of Jane Jacobs, who I'm a big fan of and a big believer in. And we have made some progress in our historic downtown, which has seen ups and downs over the years and been subjected to a lot of the same pressures that other downtowns have across North America with the change in retail over the past number of decades. But a number of community leaders, whether it's through Classic Cars or business owners and individuals, whether it's Mona at Samuel's or Alex at Evermore, whether it's the new businesses coming to our downtown, the Daisy Mays bookstore or Art Buds, whether it's the city playing a role through the Regent and the Fox and the Shipyard. It takes a community, and it takes a community that needs to be intentional, relentless, and follow through to deliver those social, economic, and health benefits that you get when you have a strong, vibrant, functioning downtown with places to go and people to meet here in our beautiful city. I'd add one last little tiny quick caveat. A downtown is where people connect, and connection is more important than it's ever been before. And we have a really successful uptown in our city, and for the first time, we're really seeing full growth in the uptown part of our town, and that's also good. So it is not one to the exclusion of the other. The uptown is where you go, I always think, to buy the things that you need, and downtown is where you go to spend time with people and perhaps get some of the things that maybe you don't. So kudos to you again, Deputy Snow, and all of the individuals working on this. I'm really excited to see where it goes next. Councillor MacDougall, you do have something to say.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just comment on a great report. I was just wondering, I seen the committee there, great looking committee. I was wondering if what the contact was or the reception was from the property owners downtown, like the owners of the buildings, and there's some of them vacant, a lot of them vacant, so, you know, if they, yeah, I just wanted to, because I imagine there's a lot of people going to be asking that.
Meaning, just ask it again, Bruce, I'm just
Yeah,
trying to make sure.
no, I wonder if there's been any input, or has any of the owners of properties downtown, especially the vacant ones, been asked to be involved in this transformation?
So there's, how I'll say it is, there's been members on the committee and involved that have a stake in the downtown, and there's some in the downtown that have not been involved, and that's probably for a variety of reasons. The existing buildings that are vacant and underutilized, our intent is to find options for them to be utilized through cooperation with them, and that would be our intent moving forward, but we have to find ways to actually get that train moving so that we can see the significant change that we need to see in our downtown.
And that's great, and that's basically the reason I asked the question. Thanks.
Great. Further comments, questions? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you, Deputy Snow. Look forward to the follow-up, probably at the next meeting, and all the actions coming. With that, we'll move into staff reports and recommendations. 5A is South Drive Corridor Speed Review Report. I think we have Director McDonald here this evening. Welcome, Director. I will hand it over to you.
All right, good evening. I guess the report was circulated with the agenda. I can give a quick recap, I guess, of some of the highlights. And I guess first off there was an inquiry or a request to review the intersections on South Drive. One, now I'll say on the north end, that's at the intersection of north, east, south, and west. And staff kind of referred to it like a compass dial. We call that compass corner. But as far as that was one intersection that was being reviewed. The other intersection was further down in South Drive. I guess I could have left this up to. The first one was this intersection up here, North Drive, South Drive, east and west. That was the first intersection that was asked to be reviewed. The second was the intersection at South Drive and Pope. This intersection was actually asked to be reviewed prior to last year. We held off doing the review last year when the AT lane construction on Pope Road was being done. So we figured either a lot of people were either avoiding it or, so we didn't want to have the traffic numbers being, I'll say, not reflective of what's typical. So we stayed away from that for an intersection and did the intersection review last year after the AT lane work was done and open. So I can flip back to this if you wish, but so what we had hired out, Harborside Engineering Group has a transportation section, so we asked them to do the review of the intersection. They have more, I'll say, specialized people that do traffic engineering than our in-house staff. So as part of their project that they did a traffic data collection and analysis, so they actually put instrumentation up to actually collect the data in the actual intersections and catch every vehicle that was turning in every different direction to compile that and do a review. They also looked at each intersection as far as where the sight distance assessments at each intersection and how far people can see when they're coming to make maneuvers at the intersection. As part of that, they looked at, okay, if there's, when they do a review of the intersection and there's needing to be improvements, what type of improvements could be considered. So they looked at what's there is called left turn warrant assessments. That's an actual, I'll say, through Transportation Association of Canada, there's a series of warrants that you go through to determine if a left turn lanes are warranted at various intersections. They also then looked at the signal or the, I'll call the, if they should flip to an all stop control warrant assessment, it's called, to say, right now, here's the existing traffic flow, free flow, and stop at the intersections, or should they go to an all warrant stop? And then we set a continue all as well and continue the review to see if it even warrants having traffic signals. So that's the scope of the work that we asked them to do. There was one other thing we added when we looked at the intersections, and it's called the skew angle, where the intersections do not happen right at 90 degrees is where you try to have. And if you can see the one up in east and west, they're not all exactly at 90 degrees, and Pope and South is not at 90 degrees either, so we wanted them to review that as well. So that's the scope of what they did. This report really shows you they went through and said, here's the current existing volumes that are happening. They try and look at where the peak hour is in the morning as well as the evening, and then analyze the intersection based on that peak hour. So that's kind of what the volumes are there. We also said, you can't just do it for today. We also said that's the current volumes today. We want to say, okay, if we're planning ahead, if there's something not needed now or we're close, if they can allow for traffic volumes to increase so we can make a 5 or 10 year projection as to what would happen in this intersection, or we could plan for capital improvements if needed. On top of that, our staff do data collection for volume. I'll say that's our city map that's on the screen. We collect data in various locations all throughout the city every year. We collect on the main collectors every year, and then we shift every second year and go to a lot of the locals. But even when we do the locals, we go back and hit some of the main collectors, so we're having data every year. That's also for companies that may want to consider coming in, where's the volumes, where's business, what type of volume can I expect? Our data collection is also dual in that we get volumes as well as speeds. So we use it for speed controls ourselves, as well as taking the data and providing that information we get data twice a week in locations for 2 days. So when the reports come in on Wednesdays and Fridays, there's also a speed component of it, and we submit that information to police so that they can have it on file. If they notice there's areas that's getting, I'll say, excessive speeding, they can deploy their own resources. Or if they happen to get a call on location, they can go back through and say, has anybody had a calls about speed? And we can say, maybe they call in August, and we can go back and say, look, there actually was data collection done there in June or last June, and here's what we found. So they'll actually have data collection on speeds as well. So, again, that was I'll say the scope of what they were asked to do. The table outlines, or the report outlines a few other, I'll say, minor things they noted where you may need an extra pedestrian sign, or what needs to happen as far as to add some additional signage. Again, they looked at a couple locations where we could do that. They took the data and inputted what they had, and they introduced it into what they call their own modeling, and said, okay, here's where we can expect the level of service at the intersections to be, and also the level of delays. That would highlight anywhere where they may need work or improvements or things to look at. When they actually looked at that, one of the things that was noted was, perhaps if I can, on Pope Road, this section of Pope Road, in the model, it was saying there was I'll say more of a delay here in noticing in the evening peak. And if you live in Summerside, you know, when you try to head out that way, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the traffic does tend to back up on Pope Road. So then they were proposing some options to consider looking at what they should do in that location. When they actually reviewed what the model says, they also came on site, then reviewed the videos to say, okay, what are we actually seeing? The queuing or the waiting, the backup, was actually longer on Pope Road than what the model was suggesting. So they're saying, why was that happening? So we can get into what they noticed on site and what improvements should be done there to help reduce that queuing or delay in that intersection. So again, they looked at the site distances and where they'd be improvements. Let me just go to the other. I'm just going to jump to page 11 here. This is an example where they're saying, look, there's a pedestrian sign here. Maybe there should be another one on the opposite side. Those are some of the minor things that they highlight that we could do for improved signage. This was what we'll call the queue or the lineup on Pope Road, waiting to turn right or left. The model said it was only going to be, I think it was 50 meters, and it turned out to be 200 meters. So when they come, again, this is a lot of numbers. We can get into the details of that if you want, but on Pope Road, for example, there's 160 cars heading out west, just shy of 130 are turning and heading north, 33 are turning left. Again, there's a lot of information in that above and beyond us. So when they looked at the traffic sight lines, this is on Pope Road. When you try to look up South Drive to see if anything's coming to be able to make that maneuver, there's trees that are in this way that's limiting the actual sight distance as far as they can see. So now that, again, this is the aerial view. If this car is here stopped, they're suggesting that this area of a sight line should be free so that people can see a car coming down here and make a decision to turn left or right out of here and be safely doing it without that vehicle. So one of the recommendations up here was, okay, we're having a longer lineup, and some of the reasons that cars are taking longer to be able to make a decision out here because they can't see far enough up South Drive. So that was one of the, we can get into what all the recommendations were. The series of tables, again, I'm not going to get into detail into the geometry, what are the calculations that they did. It's well beyond what I was going to say comfortable talking about. They did consider, again, as we say, looking at the sight distances, the geometry. They also looked at the whether they be all stops or traffic signals. So I can flip these down then to the recommendations that they came out with. I'm just going to find what if I can find the page there, page 19. We'll go back to these sketches there with me. So again, whenever they finished their review, they found there was no capacity issues at the intersections that were on the existing conditions. And they did mention there was a significant queue or backup on Pope Road. We did look ahead at the 10-year horizon, and you may experience some more delay in the 10-year horizon. And some improvements may be required then at the intersection of South and Pope. We talked about the minimum sight distance for the left turn on Pope is being impeded by the existing trees that are in it. They did come back and say some left turns are warranted, and I'll go back to the map and show you where, so it'll help explain it. Always stop control is not warranted at study intersections, and traffic control signals are not warranted at the study control intersections based on the existing and the future volume for 10 years at 1% a year, or if it happened to be in 6 years, up to 10% improvement or increase in traffic. What they were suggesting, I'll go back to the sketches, is this now is, I'll say, our Summerside St. Eleanor's Fire Station and 1 West Drive. They are suggesting that we add a left turn lane heading north so the vehicles that are waiting to turn left can have a dedicated spot and traffic can go by them on the right and not have a delay or a decrease there. That was the only improvements that they suggested on that intersection. And then we jump down to South and Pope. So on South again, they're suggesting making a short left turn lane for cars that are waiting to turn left on a Pope. And the straight through would have its own lane on the, I'll say, the curb lane side. On Pope itself, they're also suggesting that you create a left turn lane on Pope so that the majority of the traffic, as we mentioned, is coming up here and turning right going up north. They'll not be held up or queuing back because 2 or 3 cars are waiting to turn left and causing it to significantly back up on Pope Road. So the short is that the other one that we also forwarded to them is there's another page here where we had submitted where we gave them our traffic data that we've collected over the last, I think we gave them the last 5 years that was around there. And we typically highlight locations with their speed data where cars are going, in my own opinion, when they're going 20 kilometers over the posted speed. I call that excessive speeding and should be flagged to the police saying, how much percentage do we have people going more than 20? There's always some on almost every street. Whenever that percentage gets up to 5 and 10% or whatever, I typically highlight that to the chief and say, all the information has come to you guys. Here's a location that was either asked or reviewed and found. If we have beyond 5 or 10% going more than 20 over, I say that's an area that you may want to review yourself, and we can give you more data on the exact location and times when that happens. And if you choose to patrol or do that area for enforcement, target that area for enforcement. So we dug out the information to give to Harborside, and on from 2023, 24, and a number of times in 2025, we didn't have more than 2% of the traffic going more than 20% over on various points of South Drive. So we did not have a excessive speeding problem in the last, I'll say, 3 years of collection in those general areas. And I don't know if I got any other notes there to recap, but again, so they're number 11, I think their findings were the existing traffic control should be maintained at both intersections. No additional traffic signs, stops, or traffic signals are suggested or required. They suggested the 3 left turn lanes, 2 at Pope and South, and 1 at the, I'll say, Compass, or Northeast, South, and West Drive. They also suggested that the tree and vegetation be removed to help the site triangle at Pope, and some of those other minor, I'll say, signage changes be done to implement to make it, I'll say, standard or current with the Transportation Association of Canada typical signage that happens at crosswalks and what have you, that they note it while they're doing the review. So I know there's a lot of data in there and stuff, but that's the recap on what we asked these guys to review those two intersections for current traffic, signals, volume, delays, efficiencies and stuff at the two intersections, so.
Thank you, Director. We'll open it floor to council now for questions and comments, and just ask if you can remain if there are questions.
Sure.
And we'll start with Councillor Doiron, and then we'll go to Councillor MacDougall.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess first I'll just sort of appreciate and acknowledge the work, obviously, that went into this and that always goes into the reports that we get for these. I do have a couple of contextual, I guess, concerns that I think council needs to be clear on before relying too heavy on the report. First is just the timing of when we had the collection. It said in the report it was Tuesday, August 26th, which is outside of the school year. And I think that matters. That area serves Greenwood, and I think it experiences very different traffic patterns once the school is in session, especially during the morning and the afternoon. And I think maybe because of that, the data might be underrepresenting the real world conditions there during the periods that residents consistently tend to raise their concerns about. Second, the report was drawn up before we acquired the property down on 236 South Drive. So I think getting that property obviously has some implications for future access and land use and traffic generation in that area. And those obviously aren't reflected in the base conditions of this report. So I think that sort of limits how some of the conclusions can be made. And then the last thing was just the report recommends adding the left turn lanes westbound on Pope and southbound on South. My initial concern is whether that actually creates a new safety issue, specifically for the drivers that would be turning left off of Pope onto South Drive, where they'd be required to judge really 4 lanes of traffic, because they would have the people that, if you're turning right, you always pull ahead a little bit to go around the curb, so they would have those folks to look around, they would have the people traveling north to look around, and they would have the now 2 lanes traveling. So essentially, they're looking around 4 lanes of moving traffic to wait for an opportunity to pull out, often from a stop position. And I think, and that area was already identified as an existing sightline constraints. So I think even with the removal of the trees, I'm not entirely convinced that we've fully addressed the sightline issue, particularly under those school year conditions. But other than that, I think it's a very good starting point. Maybe not a final answer, and I think before we commit to any changes, I think we need to see how the school year might reflect the traffic down there, and incorporate that new property, which I think we could use to square off what's now an angle, and just examine some of the real world safety implications of asking drivers to execute these multi-lane turns that might be dangerous.
I guess regarding the time of year, I think they were targeting to get it done in the summer months when PEI is in its peak tourism season, and yes, there may be localized things around schools, but I think they were trying to target to make sure it happened before I'll say Labor Day, and we missed the off-island traffic that's here. If we say we get 1 million tourists, I'm sure they're not all on Summerside, but we have a lot of increased volume that drops off in September. Yes, we can have people that are either at cottage country or camping for the summer and moving back, but again, yes, maybe they could be reviewing numbers that are done during the school season to see if it's different.
Not that I would I'm not asking for another report or anything like that, but I think we need to consider that is a greenfields there, and there's pickups and buses, and I think it's a heavier.
The other one was as far as the acquiring a property to that corner, I don't want to say south of Pope Road. We haven't looked at the geometry to say where can they have enough room to fit that left turn lane. They may need an edge of that property to make the extra lane on Pope itself to actually fit it in. So now that we have that property, that would not be an issue. You would have you have the ability to be able to widen Pope Road to make the left turn lane fit in there. That was what the decision was. And I can't remember some of the other questions, but I'll try and answer some and make some notes.
Well, I didn't necessarily have questions, just sort of things that I noticed and
Yeah.
that fell outside of when we got that property and, yeah. And if, I guess the question would be, if we can use 4 inches of that property to widen it, could we also use that property to turn Pope Road and make it square?
Sorry, one thing I didn't highlight was when they came back, the angle does not have to be 90 degrees, but it was in the range of where it's allowed. So they did check that, and they said the angle, the skew angle is what it's called, was within allowable limits. It's not 90, but it's 80 or 85 or whatever the number was. So it's in the report there. They did not raise that as an issue requiring you to realign that skew angle at that intersection.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I won't sugarcoat it. I'm really disappointed in this report. I've been asking for this for 3 years. It never happened in the first year I asked for it. Then the next year, we were going to do it, but we held off because we were doing the active transportation lane. It didn't get done again. So this past summer, or this past year, was supposed to be done. And you know, when I got the report and I started reading it, I seen it was done on August 26th, no school, you know, no buses, no school traffic, and half the people at the beach probably. But this street, and the reason behind what I was asking for is this is the longest street in Summerside without a stop sign. You can turn the corner at the Irving off the main highway, and you don't have to stop again until you get to the Journal here, where you have to stop now and take a left or right turn. So, but I'm really disappointed in this because of the time it was taken and with the time it was done. The other thing we got to remember is August 26th, you can do 50. When the school is in, it's 40. I turned out of there today at 2:30 off of Glen Drive. There's a car coming. It was quite a ways down. I turn around, I look, I'm doing 18. When I get by, or just as I was going by, the guy behind me is doing 67, and it's a 40-kilometer zone during the school day. And, you know, so to have this done at that time is, it's not the right thing to do, and I would request that we look at doing this over, especially with some real facts, so thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I can concur with the time of the year. I think it only makes sense to have it during school time. The only other point would be that when we're looking at page 6, it's the 2-page here in the report. I think we've listed the 2023 average and then the 2025 average at the bottom. I think also inputting the 2024 average, because bringing that back down, we are saying there's not a speeding problem, but if we're looking at the 2024 data, that would consider it being a speeding problem in that year, because it's a 6.92% or over 20 kilometers. So I guess I'm just looking at that data. For me, it's definitely not crystal clear whether there is or isn't. I think when I look at the number of people who are 20 over, even 40 over, it's a concern. But I think just putting the average down so we can get the full glimpse of what the average is in the last 3 years, because then that would be a speeding problem in 2024. Anyway, just my point. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from council? All right, we'll try and tie some of this together and get us in a direction that gets us somewhere that we want to get. Thanks for all the comments, and Director and members of council. I certainly echo some of the comments from council. I think that when council thinks of what an intersection review is and when a technical consultants think of what an intersection review is, those are different things. And I don't think this is unique to this specific situation, but one that we're encountering a little more frequently, and perhaps we can both do better on both ends. So when I understand Councillor MacDougall speak to an intersection review, my understanding, and Councillor, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that there is a concern with speed during certain times of the day from a community safety perspective. So that whether it's children going to school or someone walking their dog, that Councillor MacDougall doesn't feel as though that section of street is safe. And the addition to that is the fact that it is uninterrupted for a significant period of time. So, and particularly coming off the highway. That's how I understand it. Councillor Doiron, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the impression that your understanding of an intersection review has to do with the movement of the vehicles through the intersection to make it easier, or perhaps the director in the report here as well, that those vehicles move smoother through those intersections so they don't wait as long in traffic. Those are very different things, right? That's one is it the safety and security of the individual, and the second is how we're moving vehicles through the city. And so that's where, and I don't think it's the only piece, Councillor Doiron, I think you covered both. I don't want to, you're just, but I think it's caused a bit of an issue for us, because then this comes back to council, and a couple of things aren't there. One is we get a report directly from consultants that speaks to how to move vehicles effectively in a way that is safe for vehicles, to move them quicker through the community. But what we don't have is the extra layer of the sort of the extra planning layer piece, which speaks to the concerns that council raised in terms of safety and mitigation. And those are set out in our official plan, right? Our official plan references walkable, safe streets. We talk about considerations of bicycles and pedestrians. We talk of looking for opportunities to create traffic calming measures. And to me, the report doesn't have any of that analysis or layer on it. It is, again, a report by technical experts who know how to design roundabouts and turn lanes. But it's missing the planning element and respectfully, the policy direction that council has set for how they want their streets to look. So I'm not sure where we go from there, and I sort of open that to council if there's any feedback, if you feel that's correct or not. But that's sort of the impression I gather from spending 3 years with all of you. And we have a number of these situations, right? We have other ones on tonight as well. And I think sometimes that's where some of the rub potentially comes from here. So I'm not sure how it should best move forward with, I know Councillor MacDougall, you mentioned a new report or added data, and I think that's, I can speak for council, I think that's clear here as well. I think council's looking for data around peak use times, and peak use times are most likely not in August because the school's out, and the majority of the traffic, at least in that section, is probably from the tax center, and people are on vacation as well in August in PEI. So perhaps there is more work to be done on the report, the data that provides the foundation, but I think it would also be valuable if council is open to it, to have that other layer of the review of, from a public safety, from a speed mitigation, from meeting the policy objectives that council has set in the official plan. How does that look when you take a report like this?
Yeah.
And then bring that with the recommendations. So recommendations perhaps have left turning lanes, but perhaps they also have speed mitigation measures or traffic calming measures down the street. Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, so, no, and I won't go on a whole lot, but the original request on this file was to do something to slow the traffic down. We lowered the school zone to 40, but there's not a stop sign on that road, like I said before. And, you know, I'm thinking, I was hoping that they'd come back and now that we acquired the land, we could do a three-way stop in that intersection. That would at least slow the traffic down there, and that's what I would like to, and I'm not sure what the people were told to do, whether just go out and do a traffic count or whatever, but that was my original intent, and I know, JP, a lot of these discussions went on with Gordon, so maybe that message didn't get through, so, but I would like to have this study updated with, we now own the property, that we can do some corrections on that intersection of Pope and South, and maybe there's a need for a three-way stop there or something. So anyway, just my thoughts. Thank you.
Then, looking to council, would it be valuable to provide direction for staff to take back with the consultants to, one, review the data and look for data at more high peak time? As I understand, I think we talked about this at Prope and Greenwood for the traffic lights, that when you look for signalization, you look for the peak. But anyhow, if council feels that that would be appropriate for looking at what the traffic counts are through those peak times, particularly around school. And then the second, to put a layer and a review of how potential changes could, to Councillor MacDougall's point, slow traffic down from a safety perspective, and then that would meet the policy statements of council in our official plan. And again, I don't know, and perhaps this is something for CAO to take back too, which is when we do give direction to a third-party consultant to do an intersection review, do they look at the statements of policy, and do they look at the comments or records from council when council gave initial direction? And that's why I said maybe we need as a council also to try and get a little better at giving more clarity at the front end, so that can be directly relayed to the people doing the work. We're obviously got I'd assume the consultants got a direction to do an intersection review and did an intersection review as they do. Is that a clear summation of? Is that clear? Yep. Well, the nodding heads. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you, Director McDonald. With that, we'll move on to 5B, which is recommendation for fire hall tender. And I think this is Chair Planning Board Councillor Doiron bringing this forward.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I guess before I read the memo, which obviously I'll do, just to offer a bit of context from both the council and a bit of a personal perspective. This project obviously has been years in the making. I think discussions started about replacing fire station number 1, not last term, not even the term before that. So they've been ongoing for a long time, driven by the reality that the existing building, which is from 1962, it no longer meets the needs of a modern fire service. So speaking personally as a member of the department, this is not just another capital project in a spreadsheet. It's about response readiness and safety and training space, and making sure that the people who are asked to run towards the emergencies are in a facility that actually supports the work that they're doing. So the memo that I will read, it lays out the tender process, the bids that were received, the rationale behind the recommendation before council tonight. It's important that this decision be based on a fair and transparent and policy-driven process, especially given the scale of the investment. So I just want to acknowledge the significance of this moment before getting into the technical details, because for many of us, especially those who serve or have served, Councillor Rick, this represents a pretty long-awaited step forward. So we'll get into the memo, and the resolution will come later this evening. So the City of Summerside Fire Hall Station number 1 tender results. The supporting explanation. This tender consists of building a new fire hall to replace the old fire hall, Station number 1 on Foundry Street. The following bids were received and reviewed for completeness, accuracy, and compliance with the tender documents and the City of Summerside tendering policy, with the assistance of a third-party consultant, Architecture 49 Inc. There were several bidders, and I will list those, and I will also list their bid amounts. We had McLean Construction Limited, bid amount of $9,724,000, excluding HST. And the bid Form 2 included HST and totaled $11,182,600. Fitzgerald and Snow 2010 Limited, bid amount of $11,567,000. Wilmac Construction, $12,039,023.75. Wellington Construction, $12,255,000. RCS Construction, $12,315,350. WM&M Limited, $12,564,000, and Lindsay Construction Limited, $12,763,850. The bid submitted by McLean Construction Limited did not meet the mandatory requirements of the tender documents, including the omission of required documentation at the time of bid submission, and a pricing inconsistency between bid form 1 and bid form 2 that could not be reconciled in accordance with the tender process. As a result, the bid submitted by McLean Construction Limited is materially non-compliant with the tender process and the tender documents. The bid submitted by Fitzgerald and Snow 2010 Limited was complete compliant with all mandatory requirements of the tender documents and included consistent pricing across the bid forms. While other compliant bids were received, their bid prices exceeded that of Fitzgerald and Snow 2010 Limited, and there were no alternatives. The advantages, this replaces the existing 1962 fire hall, and award to the lowest compliant bidder in accordance with the city's tendering policy and tender rules. Disadvantages, further problems could happen. That's just referring to if we decide not to go ahead with new fire hall. The costs and financial impact, one account, that'd be the fire hall, and it is submitted in the 2026 budget for consideration, and the actual cost, 15% HST included, is $11,567,000 per the successful tender bid. Recommendation: it is recommended that this project be awarded to Fitzgerald and Snow 2010 Limited in the amount tendered of $11,567,000, 15% HST included, being the lowest compliant bid received in accordance with the City of Summerside tendering policy and the tender rules.
Thank you, Councillor Doiron. Any comments, questions from council? This is coming forward as a resolution later this evening, so council will have the opportunity as well once the resolution is read and to speak to it specifically. Councillor McColeman, yep.
Very small. In the McLean construction bid, the amount, I believe you, when you were reading it, Councillor Doiron, you had indicated 600. I think it's $60 at the end of that.
There was something weird with the decimal there, unless I
Yeah.
just,
11
I did
million,
notice that, but,
11,182.
yeah, there was a decimal thing.
$60.
Yeah, but you see it's 11, comma, 182, comma, 60. It should be 060, maybe, at the end instead of
Okay.
60. So I just assumed it was 600 because of the decimal, which we should probably clarify, but you can see how why I
Oh,
did
yeah.
that. It's missing a digit.
I just thought for the minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So, good. Yeah. And in saying that, I guess, we should confirm whether it was 60 or whether it was 600.
9.724 times 15% is 600, not 60.
Okay, so $11,182,600.
Thank you.
So noted. Thank you, Councillor McColeman. So noted. That's been corrected in the recommendation minute. Any other comments, questions? As I said, we'll be speaking to this as the resolution is introduced later this evening. Seeing none, we'll move on to section 6, which is committee of the whole discussion items. I would ask if council is okay with it, if we could move item 6E up to the start. I know we have a number of residents here from Evergreen. As much as they're certainly welcome to talk about left-hand turn lanes, road markings, another intersection and a crosswalk, but if you want to get to what I think you're here to listen to tonight and then get home to your families, I'd certainly rather do that and then have you sit here for another hour. while we discuss the minutia of city. So if council's okay with that, I'll just make that friendly amendment, and we'll begin by 6E, and then I think that means I'm up as reading in the statement. So please just bear with me for a second while I jump ahead on the pages here. Great. So just a quick up here, have what is a draft at this point, a draft statement, policy statement from mayor and council regarding Evergreen Village, housing stability, municipal role, and next steps. We also have a draft council resolution that I will read afterwards. The purpose of this evening is to put forward a draft policy statement, then have further discussion amongst council, and then also look for, over the coming weeks, further discussion with residents and members of the community. I believe Councillor MacDougall is going to coordinate a follow-up meeting with residents of Evergreen who want to speak specifically around the policy and the statement. And this came about from ongoing conversations and feedback with members of the community, and the desire to provide certainty and some more certainty and clarity on what is a very difficult situation, so that we can support residents as best possible to try and find a resolution that works for members of our community. One of the concerns that I know myself and council had, that there are a lot of conversations going on in a lot of different ways and between a lot of different people. And through my experience, sometimes what happens when that occurs, there can be situations where good solutions can fall through the cracks, and that's certainly something we do not want to have happen here. There are no there's obviously no silver bullet or clear solution here right now, but what we really don't want to have happen is something that could help get missed. So with that, I'm going to read verbatim the statement. This is on the public record. And for members who are here today, as well as your neighbors, as well as anyone who's joining us, I'd certainly encourage you to reach out to myself and to council. Councillor MacDougall, as the ward representative, would be a great point of contact, but any member of council and council shares all that information with each other so that we can make sure that this works for everybody. And you'll have to bear with me for a couple of minutes because this is a couple of pages. So this statement is intended to clearly set out the City of Summerside's role, actions taken by Mayor and Council to date, and the approach we'll continue to take regarding Evergreen Village. It's meant to provide residents of the province of Prince Edward Island and the broader community with clarity about what the city can do, what it cannot do, and how we will continue to engage in a responsible and constructive way. The objective. Evergreen Village is a community, not just a property. And I know this is, for the members individuals who are here today, none of this is going to come to news for you, but I think it's important for us to say because it's important for us to remember and to share with the broader community. Evergreen Village is home to real people and families whose lives are directly affected by uncertainty about their housing. For many residents, these are not simply housing units. They are long-standing homes in a neighborhood that has been a source of stability and affordability for decades. Council has heard directly from residents, visited the community, and cares deeply about the anxiety, stress, and uncertainty that prolonged instability creates, particularly for seniors, families on fixed incomes, and those with limiting housing alternatives. This statement is grounded not only in policy and jurisdiction, but in a sincere recognition of the lived experiences of Evergreen residents and a shared desire to see outcomes that respect, I will say, your dignity, security, and the chance to keep calling Evergreen Village home. Jurisdiction, something that we cannot escape from. Our shared goals must also be grounded in the reality of what we can actually do as a municipality. Housing policy, tenant protections, financing mechanisms, and income-based affordability programs fall primarily under provincial responsibility. The City of Summerside does not control residential tenancy law, mobile park, home park tenancy protection, rent regulation, mortgage or acquisition financing, or income-based housing supports. What we do control are land use planning and zoning, municipal infrastructure, some property taxation policy, which I'll touch on, including affordable housing property tax policy, and our ability to advocate, coordinate, and support residents within the limits of municipal authority. That is where our focus has been and where it will and needs to remain. Actions taken since concerns at Evergreen Village were brought forward, going on past October, so we're looking on, what are we, 14, 15 months. Mayor and council have taken sustained action. In a sense, a lot of the action as well that I'll list out here has been at the request of residents from that initial meeting that we had 15 months ago, and subsequently through Risha as a coordinator for many members of the community. Formal correspondence obviously sent to Premier and relevant ministers. That was an October 24 requesting provincial engagement and solutions, followed by ongoing meetings with ministers, MLAs, and the property owner. Those have been ongoing, and as recently as 2 weeks ago with the Minister of Housing. Council reviewed safety, access, water, and sewer issues at Evergreen Village, including sinkhole and emergency access concerns resulting in targeted road access improvements to a certain extent. Council received presentations from the Evergreen Residents Association outlining potential options, including relocation, purchase, and resident protection measures, and directed staff to identify available municipal tools. Council's approved financial support to ensure residents had access to independent legal advice with additional funding provided as requested. That's occurred twice. Zoning was reviewed and clarified, confirming Evergreen Village's designation as a mobile home park with guidance provided on pathways under different ownership models within existing bylaws. And Mayor and Council have issued public statements recognizing resident stress, advocating for stability, and calling for responsible ownership. Council has initiated work on a mobile home park policy and reaffirmed by Council as a high priority planning item, and I think that was a subject of the Planning Committee's most recent meeting. At every step, Council has been guided by a few simple realities. Housing stability matters. Prolonged uncertainty causes real harm. Municipal tools must be used responsibly and within the law. Long-term solutions must be realistic, fundable, and supported by the province. Considerations. Looking ahead, the city will continue with a clear, structured approach. The first priority is advancing a mobile home park policy that clarifies expectations for park owners, strengthens requirements related to notice, maintenance, communication, and transparency, and identifies additional protection where municipal authority allows. This work will proceed through the Planning Committee and Council with public input. Jumping quickly off of the policy statement here, some of that will come to a certain degree with respect to maintenance, perhaps notice, communication, and transparency too late. In a lot of circumstances, this would have been valuable 2 years ago, but it is where we are, and the reality is I don't think anyone anticipates that you will be alone in what you're going through right now. There will be certainly others. There have been others before you and will be others after. It's incumbent on us to make sure that we make the adjustments on the policy side to support you as well as to support others in the future. At the same time, the city will consult with residents on the value of establishing a municipal action team to provide a coordinated point of contact for Evergreen Village residents who are seeking alternative housing options, exploring supportive or long-term stable housing, or considering relocation and need guidance. This will not replace provincial housing programs. It will help residents navigate options, connect information, and avoid being left to manage complex decisions on their own. Again, jumping off of the policy statement is very much a plan for the worst, hope for the best at all levels. Finally, the city is open to considering the costing and technical feasibility of extending or upgrading municipal infrastructure, including water, sewer, and related above and below ground works, where this would support a viable long-term ownership solution of individual properties. This could include resident-led cooperative model or a model where residents acquire a real property interest in their individual lots. Any such work would be technical in nature, depending on a credible proponent, requiring partnership with the province and subject to funding availability, as always. Evergreen Village remains zoned as a mobile home park under the city's zoning bylaw and future land use plan. Council supports its continued viability as a residential community and does not support displacement without fair, reasonable, and well-structured protections in place. Council also wants to be clear about two things we likely cannot do. Expropriation is not an appropriate or legislatively viable tool in this situation. It's not suited to resolving private housing and tenancy matters and would not likely withstand legal or practical scrutiny. Second, the City of Summerside is not a lender and cannot finance the purchase of Evergreen Village or individual lots. Any acquisition by a co-op, not-for-profit, or other entity would require provincial private or non-profit sector financing and support. Where units or lots are deemed affordable based on provincial housing needs, the city obviously would remain open to exploring the application of our affordable housing policy, including a sliding scale property tax abatement incentives in alignment with council policy and provincial framework. We recognize the anxiety and strain Evergreen residents are experiencing. While municipalities do not control housing systems on their own, the City of Summerside will continue to use every appropriate municipal tool available to us, advocate firmly with the province, maintain clear communication, and work collaboratively towards outcomes that prioritize stability, clarity, and respect for residents in the future of Evergreen Village. With that, I will read into the council resolution. This is a draft resolution, so this resolution is introduced at this point in our committee of the whole meeting, and then the resolution would come forward at the next council meeting where there would be further adjustments, changes, and feedback and discussion. I see it as we're using whatever tool we can to try and support residents, and this is another tool. City of Summerside Council Resolution, re-Evergreen Village, Housing Stability, Municipal Role and Direction to Staff. Whereas Evergreen Village is a long-established mobile home park within the City of Summerside and provides housing to residents, many of whom are seniors and individuals on fixed or modest incomes, and where residents of Evergreen Village have experienced prolonged uncertainty regarding the future of their housing, creating stress and concern for their safety, stability, and well-being. And whereas housing policy, tenant protections, rent regulation, financial mechanisms, and income-based affordability programs are primarily matters of provincial jurisdiction under the laws of PEI, and whereas the Municipal Government Act grants municipalities authority over land use planning, zoning, municipal infrastructure, property tax, and local policy within legislated limits. And whereas Council of the City of Summerside has undertaken advocacy, infrastructure review, zoning clarification, legal support, and intergovernmental engagement related to Evergreen Village. And whereas Council has determined that clarity regarding municipal authority, available tools, and future direction is necessary in the public interest. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Summerside hereby affirms the following. 1, jurisdiction and role. Council affirms that housing policy, tenant protections, and acquisition financing are primarily responsibility of the province of PEI, and the city's role is limited to exercise municipal authority under the MGA, including land use planning, zoning, infrastructure, tax policy, advocacy, and coordination. I'm going to read the parts quickly that I've already said a few times in the interest of time. Zoning and community recognition. Council confirms that Evergreen Village is zoned as a mobile home park under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw and designated accordingly in the city's future land use plan, and recognizes Evergreen Village as an established residential community within the city. 22. 3, position on displacement. Council does not support displacement of Evergreen Village residents without fair, reasonable, and well-structured protections in place, and continue to advocate for housing stability within its legislative authority. I know, Bruce, it is a little long. What? That's just, it does, the resolution in many ways restates the policy statement. Mobile home park policy. Council directs staff to prioritize the development of a mobile home park policy. That, as I said, that has already begun, to be advanced through planning committee and council for the purpose of clarifying expectations of strengthening standards related to notice, maintenance, communication, transparency, and identifying protections where municipal authority allows. Resident support and coordination. Council directs the CAO to consult with Evergreen Village residents, as I said, through mayor and council as well. If appropriate, establish a coordinated municipal action team to assist residents who are seeking alternative housing options. That's very much looking for your feedback on this for members of for residents, for the purpose of facilitating information referrals and coordination without replacing provincial housing programs, but supporting the navigation of them. Infrastructure feasibility. Council authorizes staff to consider where appropriate the cost and technical feasibility of municipal infrastructure extensions or upgrades, including water, sewer, and related works, where such analysis would support a viable long-term ownership model, including a cooperative or resident ownership model. Expropriation. Council affirms that expropriation is not an appropriate or legislatively viable tool in this matter. Financing and acquisition, council affirms that the City of Summerside is not a lender and will not finance the purchase of Evergreen Village or individual lots, and any acquisition by a co-op, not-for-profit, or entity would require provincial, private, and not-for-profit sector financing and support. I would note that, again, just jumping off of this, council in a lot of situations will get involved in a variety of ways to try and make things work. Sometimes, if there are levers or opportunities for other sources of funding, we will be working to find those and get them to you. And we've spoke about that before. We actually looked at potentially trying to use some federal funding in support, but it did not align with the program, which is something we deal with regularly, where we want to do something, but the funding program from another level of government doesn't necessarily align. Housing, affordable housing incentives where units or lots are deemed affordable based on the needs. Council affirms consideration and application of the affordable housing policy, including sliding scale property tax abatements. And advocacy and communication, council directs mayor and staff to continue advocacy, I would say, and council, to continue advocacy with the province of PEI and relevant stakeholders, and to maintain clear, consistent communication with residents through the Save Evergreen Village group, as well as any residents who are not engaged in that group, regarding ongoing actions, limitations, and opportunities for us to support. So the last is just to be it further resolved. This resolution be released publicly as a statement of council's position. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, done. Again, apologize for the repetition there, but at this point, as I said, I will open the floor to council, but the next steps on this would be 3, council input and consideration and ongoing discussion of the statement so that we know where we can help and what we can do, and understand where we can't, because I don't want us to waste time on something that we can't do, and lose the energy on something that we can do. And that's the goal here, is to find the best solution and all the options possible to keep you and your neighbors in your homes and in your community. The second piece, as I said, is public input from members of the public, yourselves and anybody else, to council. Again, it can come through me, it can come through Councillor MacDougall as the ward representative, or any member of council. And I know a number of councillors have, pretty much every councillor has had ongoing conversations. So anything that does come into council, we'll share with amongst ourselves as well. And then, as I said, Councillor MacDougall has offered to coordinate a follow-up meeting on this policy and statement to get residents' feedback, as well as continue to update on whatever other strings we can be pulling and people we can be poking, because we need to keep doing both. So with that, I'll just open the floor to council if council has anything to add, and I apologize for the length of the reading that out.
No, I'm sorry. No, yeah, it was a long statement, but it needed to be. And, you know, the residents in this park have been holding on a long time for a solution here. And I think, you know, it's really time for people to get around the table that can make decisions on this and get it done. Because this is one mini home park, or Evergreen Village is just one. We have 2 or 3 of them in the city, and they're all getting older. So, you know, things need to happen on this file, and I know there's an IRAC hearing coming up, but I intend to work with Risha, and we'll get a public or a meeting of the residents and invite council to come out and have a conversation with these two. So. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, just a very, very short. I just want to assure people, or just say to people, that the restraints or the constraints that were outlined in the mayor's statements, I want to emphasize that those are not to be an indicator of any lack of desire, that we really want to do everything that we can do. So, yeah.
Pull all the strings. message sent. Pull them hard. I'm happy to do that. I've learned my lesson. Sometimes I pull them too hard, but I'll keep doing it. Councillor McColeman.
Thank you. Just to the residents, thank you for being here and hearing the comments. What that will help us do is make sure that that's on the record, that all of the information that the municipality has tried to do, we can take it so far, but as Mayor has indicated and Councillor Bruce, all of the stakeholders, whether it's provincial, municipal, the residents, all of the folks that own the mobile homes, as well as possibly, the person that owns the land. I think it's really important that everybody is together at that table talking and advocating, and I think that's really clearly what is being spoke of here, that we can only take it so far in that policy information, but we can certainly try, and as the different members have, advocating for the residents to hopefully make other stakeholders and levels of government hear what the plea is, what you folks are facing. Thank you.
Yeah, I will be very quick. I want to thank you all for coming. I know that it's not easy to sit there to talk about what we are talking about right now, but I think it's great that you guys continuously advocate and very respectfully advocate too, so that's always nice. And I also just want to say that it is been a very interesting process, but when we sit here and we talk about these things, there has been many options thrown around on this side of the table, and I will say that every one of us has been very open to hearing all of those options, and that's how we got to the draft policy that we have here. We went through every possible thing that we could possibly think of, some of which came from you guys, which made it a little easier because you gave us ideas already. So keep advocating, keep staying on us, and we will keep doing our job on this side of things as well.
Seeing no further comments from council, we'll move to the next item. And if folks, like I said, you're welcome to stay for the left turn lanes on Central and Route 2, but we won't take any offense if you want to go home. We do not have that opportunity. Okay. With that, we'll move on to item 6A, which is left turns at Central Route 2, Duke and Pope Road. Councillor Doiron, you brought this item forward to committee of the whole. Councillor.
Yeah, okay, so I guess just before we get into the individual agenda items, just to sort of zoom out for a moment, over the past couple years, really, we've been seeing a growing number of intersection locations and traffic-related challenges come forward for discussion through residents, through ourselves, and through ourselves as we make our own observations as road users. And in some cases, obviously, staff too. So I think that suggests that we may be at a point where it makes sense to step back and look at how we're prioritizing that list of intersections and road-related items. Obviously, budgetary constraints is probably the main roadblock, pardon the pun, to just fixing everything. But there's also perception, what we think needs to be fixed based on frustration and inconvenience versus what should be fixed based on safety or just traffic flow efficiency in general. And of course, what one person may think is inefficient, it may not actually be. So that's where the traffic studies and the data come in. So. We've already discussed this evening about South and Pope, which is one of several locations that have been raised repeatedly. Another intersection I think we need to take a closer look at some point, or as part of this list, is Central Street and Walker, with the addition of Kent and the new Centennial Honda and the expansion of the butcher shop, which was already seeing high traffic. This has very quickly become one of those areas of concern. So, and these aren't just one-off complaints. They're locations that continue to come up through different channels and over extended periods of time. So I fully appreciate that each location requires that proper evaluation and data collection and staff time, and that those reviews are essential for us to make informed decisions. The data is an important tool, and it should absolutely inform our approach, but at the same time, we all know that data doesn't always perfectly capture what people are experiencing on the ground. Sorry, Ken, I know you're a data guy, no offense when I say that. I think there's value in being clear that while not every frustration warrants intervention, there are certain locations where issues are obvious. There are issues that are recurring, and they're consistently raised by residents. And those are the places where I think we should be focusing our attention on and our limited resources on. So what I was hoping for this evening was just a brief discussion about whether we can better align our technical analysis with some real lived experience, and whether there's an opportunity to more deliberately prioritize locations where safety and predictability and risk are clearly at play, while still being disciplined, I guess, about separating inconvenience from actual concern. So with that in mind, there are a couple of agenda items on. We have Central Street and Highway 2, sort of grouped in with Duke and Pope, where left turns sort of are becoming issues. And then we have the whole Granville Street commercial area by Sobeys and Shoppers, Wendy's, Tim's, that everybody knows that one. And those are intended to be practical examples of where those broader prioritization questions sort of mix with the real ongoing safety and operational concerns. So if there's any questions or anything, we can just sort of get into the first one, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I just kind of want to bring it up and then explain some of the details, and I think none of them will be a surprise to anyone. Left turns at Central Street and Route 2, turning left onto the highway when you're turning off of Central Street to head west, and then Duke Street and Pope Road, turning off of Duke left, can be a bit of a problem. So I added that to sort of to bring forward the ongoing safety and challenges related to left turn movements in those two places. Residents have been clear that these left turns are becoming increasingly difficult due to the steady two-way traffic. With nearby roundabouts in place, there are very few, I guess, gaps that sort of naturally occur in the traffic that allow for the safe turning left. So that combination is leading to frustration and impatience and perhaps risky decision-making by drivers. One idea that was sort of raised for discussion is improved communication, wayfinding signage, maybe making drivers aware that turning right and using the roundabouts could be a short-term, it only adds 45 seconds to a minute. If you want to head left, just go right and go around the circle and you're on your way. It's 600 meters added to your drive. So, and with respect to Central Street and Route 2, obviously we all know that Route 2 is a provincial highway, and that sort of rests with them, anything that happens on that road. At the same time, there have been ongoing indications over the years that the province may have plans for that intersection. So tonight, if nothing else, maybe this will prompt some clarity around whether anything is planned, and what the timeline might be, and what role the city can play in the meantime. Whether that's just advocating with the province to kind of let us know when and what might be done there, if anything. Any coordination we can do, or temporary measures, such as maybe, I don't know if we can discourage people from turning left or anything like that. The only other location I can think of in the city is on Water Street by the Irving, where there's a no left turn sign. And I can only assume that that's sort of due to the same reason. It's just not safe to do so. Maybe there's others, but I think that's the only one that I can think of. And then the other item is Granville Street. So I don't know if anybody needed to, if there was any discussion that anybody wanted to have on the first part, or just more of a case of just airing it out.
Are we discussing the second one?
What's the second one?
Granville Street and.
Yeah, that's sort of
Yeah.
the next item. So
I
this
just
is,
didn't
that was
wanna-
A and.
I thought you were leading to
Granville
that.
Street's B.
Yeah, there's no question, and that's been brought up here before, at least 2 occasions by myself, and it would be great, once again, if that particular intersection can marry up with all the rest of them that are on Granville Street.
Yeah.
And it would certainly make the flow of traffic again a little easier and simpler and safer. And I know we've discussed it on numerous occasions before, and I'm glad it's being brought up again, because it's, for some reason, we haven't seemed to changed it or fixed it yet, but I'm sure that's coming soon.
Yep. So it's I have a couple bullet points on that one too. But cool. Anyone else?
I'm going back to A.
Oh yeah, sure. Like I guess we did.
Not really much to add to it, other than I'm very happy that you brought these up, and also brought up Central and Walker. I drive that every single day, both into work and out of work. Going into work is great because I turn right. It's very easy. Coming out of work, turning left. I've seen many people take fate into their own hands very quickly. And like we discussed, you know, the practicality of having reviews done is great, but sometimes the actual lived experience gives us a little bit more detail. And it would be unfortunate to look at places like Central and Walker and Duke and Pope and wait for those big accidents to happen, because they are coming eventually. People look behind them, they see lines, they get stressed, they want to pull out, they take chances, they get in accidents. So if we can do things now to mitigate those potential accidents, I think that would be great. Very happy that you put Duke and Pope on there, because that was one of my budget asks as well. So, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Doiron. No issue with supporting any of these, and I don't know what you're looking for in regards to support, but I do see where you're coming from on these. The Granville Street intersection, I think previously every time we've brought it up, and I guess the reasoning behind it was that because it goes into private whatever, I think that's irrelevant. Personally, I think our job is to make traffic flow on our streets safely, whether or not it's going into private property or not. So there's many sections throughout the city where we've added a turn lane into private property to make traffic flow, i.e. we were talking about one before council here tonight with tech services. So I hope that's not the reason it comes back again. I think that's a long overdue intersection that, as Councillor Morrison indicated, should align with the rest of the traffic lights that are in that business area. So if I was to prioritize one, that'd be definitely one that would be at the top, but all those other ones that continue to have traffic flow safely through our city are a priority.
Yeah, okay. To sort of address your sort of opening statement, not sure what I'm asking for. I guess what I'm asking for is for Central and the highway to have communication with the province and see if there is in fact anything planned for that location. Because I think we've heard through different channels over the years that there is, especially with the roundabout that they put at Granville and all the new commercial activity up there. I don't know if that sort of pushes the priority ahead for them or not, but I think we need to find out. For Duke and Pope, I don't know what I'm asking for. I would ask if it is worthwhile taking a look at whether or not restricting lefts altogether would make any sense. I don't know. I'm not in that field to sort of ask for that. As a road user, it does. To me, adding 30 seconds to go around the roundabout, it feels like it adds a lot onto your drive, but it really doesn't. And for the Granville area there, I am asking for turn signals and appropriate lanes to turn left into and the obvious ask for that one. Whether we need to evaluate that first, likely, but that's what I'm asking for there. And as far as the, I know we've been told that signalizing that location would be difficult due to property considerations, and that was pretty much accepted for a long time. I think it's reasonable to, like you say, revisit that, and I think property owners would likely benefit from improved access to their businesses, so, yeah. Councillor Trenholm, got some data for us?
So funny. Yeah, I think Councillor Drong, I can definitely concur with both. If you're looking at the Granville Street, I mean, that's the ward I went door to door on, and if I were look at all the traffic concerns people had, that would be a key issue that was brought up repeatedly, as well as both of these were actually brought up during the seed process in terms of intersections, for the same reasons you've identified. I'm just thinking though, it seems that when these are big items, and if we're looking at, I don't know, having discussions and aligning them around the budget time, it just seems that could we sit down and plan and prioritize as a council, what are the key intersections that we want to work on, and prioritize them, right? Doesn't matter what ward they're in, like what are the most concerning intersections, and prioritize them, and that should be our go-to, that should be our work plan for X number of years. That's just my feedback. I think we all, I think we can all probably pinpoint, and then these are two intersections, right? But that's just my feedback, but these are definitely concerning intersections, but I think we need to have a larger picture, I think, approach, so we can deal with the intersections that are of most concern, and put them on the list and get them done.
Okay. And I think, and I did sort of, I don't know if I outright asked that we do that, but I definitely suggested at the first year that we prioritize this somehow, whether that's a procedure or just a meeting about it, I don't know, but, and then I forgot to mention, when I was answering Deputy Mayor about what I'm asking for, the fourth item there would be something on, Walker and Central. I don't know what, but, yeah.
Okay, so let's try and put clarity on this so that we get back what we're looking for. The first, just with respect to Central Street and Route 2, no reason why we can't just, mayor and council send correspondence to the province requesting update, and also encouraging them to go ahead and move forward on proceeding to put a roundabout there for safety concerns. So that shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to draft that and send that off. If council's okay with that, I'll send a draft around to everyone.
Add, just, because you just sparked something in my mind, they're putting roundabouts in these places that 4 cars a month drive on.
Yes. Well,
I
yeah.
think there's a bit of reasoning behind maybe.
We'll put our best
this
foot
location.
forward. Yeah.
Pull the strings like that fella said.
It's the only route between west and east in the province. So we can definitely do that. On the others, I just piggyback off Councillor Trenholm and then looking for Councillor on the what to do next. Perhaps it would be one, as was suggested, for council, it could send to perhaps Councillor Doiron. If Councillor Doiron, you could collect and create the list of intersections that council identifies as a concern from one of or both a traffic flow and a safety perspective, from a flow and a safety perspective. And Councillor, if you would be able to capture all of those, and then to Councillor Trenholm's point, to bring them back and we can try and prioritize them, because I think that's probably the most sensible thing here, because I'm not gonna be able to do all of them at once. And when I say do all of them, get to what that kind of should look like for us, but at least then council can prioritize what council thinks are the ones of the most pressing concern. It'd probably be useful to also have tech services look at it as well from a safety and flow perspective, and provide their feedback. And we could do that at the next committee of the whole meeting, rank those. The second piece is, I think we should also revive we did this exercise, but we did it with 4-way stops, because Councillor Cameron was getting run over every week. And then that got left off the table. So I think that should also come back, and you should have both the intersections as well as the 4-way stop intersections. So we can start to identify what council sees as the ones of the most pressing concern, and then how we go about addressing them. I'd suggest that the way to go about addressing them would be through an intersection review based on the priorities, but providing better clarity on what an intersection review means from council, so that we get what it is that we're looking for with the review, and perhaps a preliminary review before you go to external consultants. So that would sort of be the 3 steps. If that works for you, Councillor Doiron, we can. The great advantage, thing that of council is that like if I take my council hat off and turn right on Walker and Granville and go through those giant seasonal potholes, I curse. And but the great thing about council is that we've got basically 9 people driving around and walking around and using the city, looking at it through that lens, and that's really valuable information. That is valuable data. While the empirical data is useful, we're all active users, and I think to a certain degree look at our public infrastructure differently than every other resident, because you're going to be going through your budget time and decide what parts are going to get fixed. So there's a lot of value in that perspective. So I think making sure. Oh, jeez, trust me, it's on the record where that pothole is right now. So if council's okay with that, and if you're okay with that, Councillor Doiron, coordinating, if the rest of council can send to you, and then you can bring it forward to prioritize. And then we can talk about what an intersection review means, so that we get what council is looking for, and we move forward on it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And another tool that might help shed light is if the police have any data on where accidents occur. I know you'll get a page full
That'd
from
be great.
Granville and Wendy's. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, and that if we can have that data come in as well, that would be fabulous. Has anyone been to Carmel, Indiana? Does anyone know Carmel, Indiana? Why Carmel, Indiana is famous for 155 roundabouts. They created 155 roundabouts in Carmel, Indiana over the course of the last 30 years, getting rid of all intersections and replacing them with roundabouts, and the city is recognized as one of the safest and has the best traffic flow of others. Anyhow, Councillor McColeman?
I just wanted to point out, if we're going to do that around the intersections, the point that came up tonight in the review was that, and you're pointing it out as well, we're seeing it through the different lens of driving around when there's problem areas. And I think if we're going to do that, another thing that would be an important thing for us to do, same way as we do an agenda item, we put down what category does it fit or the reason why. I think we need to name 1 to 3 specific things like safety, like if that's a real priority. I think we need to really state that, and maybe 1 or 2 so that whoever is doing the review, they would look at it through that lens. Because sometimes we're looking at it through a technical, which is very important, but again, we're seeing it from what we're hearing from parents during school year. And I think if we're looking at the review of the intersections and we're submitting something, we need to have several main reasons why we want it looked at.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that could come to you as well, Councillor Doiron, perhaps to start with something that objective and purpose, so that when we say an intersection review, we know we've got the agreed on language, and that will then go to staff and to consultants. This is what it means when we're asking for that.
Safety, visibility, whatever, but be specific, and then hopefully whoever's doing the review will look at it through that lens.
Right, and that would help. That would help also staff, and that would help consultants be able to meet what the request is.
And maybe time of year.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor. Is that okay? Great. The great list, we'll call it. All right. Taking along. Item 6B, Granville Street intersection. We're done? Do you want to talk about it? Okay. Let's go on the list.
We already discussed it. It's good.
Okay,
Yeah, put it on the list.
great, on the list.
The great
Thanks.
list.
The great list. Great, road markings report, this is me, this is also Councillor Doiron. In the package, this has been an ongoing sense of frustration for both members of the public, and I think for our operations team and staff and other municipalities across the country. This is the challenge with road markings. I'll read what it says here. Road markings are generally, I'll say generally terrible everywhere. Has nothing to do with the staff or the team that applies the road markings, but it has everything to do with the federal requirements around durability of road markings and federal VOC regulations. So we prepared a quick background as explaining why the case and looking for council interest for advocating for safer options. The background was sent around to council, so in advance, and some feedback was provided. So generally looking for, and I'd sort of say this could come as a secondary priority to your work on the intersection, the Great List. and looking to give staff direction to conduct a review of road marking performance under current products, exploring alternative technologies, costs, and suppliers, assess the impact penalties for noncompliance with current standards, and draft proposed minimum performance and visibility standards, starting with high-risk locations, and perhaps the high-risk locations can be the ones that are identified on your list. And for council and perhaps Councillor MacDougall with FPIM and myself as a board member to advocate with FPIM and other municipalities across the country on the advocacy on this, and potentially draft a policy statement for future regulatory or program discussions. And again, I think we've talked about this before. The reality is that the paint requirements in Canada don't meet the weather and the wear that we put on them through our winter seasons and our salt and our sand. And it is, at least from my perspective, a significant safety hazard. And it, again, is not just here in Summerside, it's across PEI, it's across other municipalities in Canada, but when you can't see the lines on the road, you spend a lot of time looking for the lines on the road and not a whole lot of time looking up to where you're going. And I know there's some environmental concerns with the low VOC content in the paint, but I just think from a safety, health and human safety perspective, I'm not sure that outweighs it. So that was the request, to ask staff to take action on those items and for council to take action on those two. Councillor MacDougall.
Your Worship, FCM has received a resolution from a town or a city in Quebec, and it's on the books. It has been passed through to the FCM board, and they're working on it. They're asking to have the federal government relax the regulations because it's causing more accidents because it's wearing off, and in larger cities it's the same thing. And so it's a safety hazard right now, and they're asking them to have that regulations relaxed until a better solution is found. So, but I'm going to meetings in March, and that'll probably be an update on that agenda. So item. Thank you.
That'd be great, and hopefully we can add our voice to that. Yeah. Yeah. So just looking for council direction. If you think we should give staff some direction and ourselves some direction to look at alternative technologies and impact of non-compliance and how we might be able to go about addressing this. Everyone comfortable? Yep. Okay. That, I guess, that's go to planning committee. Councillor Doiron to work with staff on that. Great. Thanks, everyone. Crosswalk, we're all over. This is our big planning night. Crosswalk, McEwen Road, Councillor Morrison.
I'll just touch on this briefly. I won't bother reading the whole thing out or anything like that. And I don't know if it was a coincidence that we're discussing a lot of this stuff tonight, 24 hours before we discuss budget items. This is not a coincidence. This was deliberate. It's just the fact that we probably have the largest school in Summerside with the largest number of students attending, crossing one of the busiest streets, and I believe, and I could be wrong, it may be the only school in Summerside that doesn't either have a crossing guard or a lit or flashing light crosswalk system. So it's been brought to my attention lately. And the big issue is not only in the morning and in the evening when they leave, but the students, it's probably the busiest intersection or on McEwen Road when it's lunchtime and the kids are all leaving to go down to the corner of Glover Shore Road or Water Street and McEwen Road to get lunch. So I just wanted to bring it up to get it out there so people give it some thought. It may be coming up in the budget stuff. Hopefully it does. And the other issue too, I wanted to, some of the calls I got on it were the fact that with students leaving school in December and January at 5 o'clock when it's dark, it's poorly lit also. And they say that most of the traffic's reasonably good to stop when they see someone, but the only problem is they don't see them when it's dark because it's not lit up well enough even on the sides to see anybody standing there. So I just thought I'd bring it forward and hopefully it's an issue we can discuss in the next couple of weeks.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trenholm, those are called RFBs, right? Rapid flashing beacons? Right, we're all learning, thanks. And budget deliberations start tomorrow, Councillor, so perhaps we'll be talking about it then. Fresh on our minds. That's the last one, that's always good to get the last voice in. Well played, Councillor Morrison, good job. We'll now move on to our special council meeting here at 7:30. If council's all right, I'll do that, and then we'll take a really brief recess before we move into the in-camera. Just a quick couple of items, special council. So I'll call to order the special council meeting of February 3rd, 2026 here as City of Summerside. I'll begin by calling that to order. I'll call for a mover and a seconder to approve the special council meeting agenda. So move, Councillor Cameron, second, Councillor Doiron. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Changes, revisions, alterations, deletions, seeing none, we'll move with the agenda as presented. Opportunity to declare a conflict of interest with respect to any item before you, council. The two items were on earlier, so there shouldn't be any. Nothing should have changed since then. We'll now move to item 4, resolution COS 26-003, mobile sales establishment, and this is Councillor Doiron, Chair Planning Board.
Yes, it is. I've talked a lot tonight. Yeah, so resolution COS 26-003. Whereas Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh are requesting council approval in accordance with section 13 of the licensing bylaw CS21 to operate a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavours on Wheels at 60 Water Street, the Baywalk parking lot, and the property owner, City of Summerside. And whereas section 13 of the licensing bylaw provides that council shall allow or refuse an application based on the following considerations: safety, desirability, impact on established businesses in the city, public convenience, and such other considerations as it deems appropriate. Be it resolved that council grant approval to Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh to operate a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavours on Wheels. The license is subject to the following conditions: paying a license fee of $500 for a local business as per licensing bylaw CS21 regulations. All food premises license is approved by the province. A food premises license is approved by the province. Litter disposal containers are provided on site. Hours and days of operation are 12 p.m. to 10 p.m., Monday to Sunday. Connection of any pipe, hose, etc. to the city system requires city approval, and all conditions set out by the property owner. This bears the recommendation of the planning board meeting of February 3rd, 2026. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder. Anyone on council? Moved by Councillor Cameron. And a seconded by Councillor Trenholm.
Thank you, Councillor. Resolution COS 26-003, moved by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor Trenholm, is on the floor. Open for questions, comments, statements from members of council. I didn't see whose light was on first, but Councillor MacDougall, you can, Councillor Snow. Councillor MacDougall defers. Councillor Snow, you can go first, and then MacDougall.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Couple things. Hours, days of operation says 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Is that their request? Or is that, I'm thinking of other food trucks, 12 p.m.'s lunchtime. Some people like to eat lunch a little earlier. So I'm just, like, that just seems weird to me, like the 12 to 10, but if that's at their request, that's irrelevant. And then the other comment or condition I would like to see us put on, and then probably open up a further discussion on food trucks in general in the city limits, would be the length of time they're open. The more and more I think of it, I'm not sure I love the fact that they can be open year-round, operating a food truck, while other businesses try to make a go of it with brick and mortar, have other fees, and I just feel it gives a leg up. I love the idea of food trucks and trying to find out if it works, and providing that service, particularly around the busier time of year when we have large influx of tourism, tourists to our city. in the island, but then when things slow down and you have everybody trying to have a piece of the pie, that the pie's not as big, it concerns me. So I have no problem supporting it with the condition that it's probably not year-round operating. I think the other ones that we have approved, they have had that ability to open year-round, but we haven't seen it. And just when this initially came forward, it was mentioned that they were planning to open immediately throughout the winter, and it seemed to me like it was more of a permanent year-round operation as opposed to what I would consider a food truck operation.
Yeah, my sentiments are very much the same as Deputy Mayor's. Is this food truck supposed to start right away?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And again, I'm not in favor of it opening this time of year. I think there should be. I'm not against the food trucks, but I think there's a season for them, and I will not be supporting the motion.
Just as I reiterated earlier in our discussion, again, I am not against food vending trucks. I think they add to the value, but my thoughts are they are during the summer months when there's a lot of tourism, when there's a lot of times where people are out more often, and I tend to lean in the same direction that when there are bricks and mortar establishments that are trying to make a go of things year round, we need to be very mindful of trying to accommodate those situations as well. So I won't be supporting it like for the longer hours, certainly throughout the year.
Thank you so much. While I do somewhat agree with the hours of operation throughout the entire year, if we look back, like Deputy Mayor Snow has said, every single food truck that we have approved up to this date had the option to do that. We have never said anything. We've never had an issue with it because historically they've never done that. I don't think that it is fair to change that now. I think that it would be something that should be changed going forward after this approval. It feels like these people who would like to have this food truck and want to get it going right away are somewhat, I don't want to use the word being punished because I don't think anyone's trying to punish anyone. We're looking out for other people, and that's very fair as well. But I just don't think that it's fair to right now say that we would not approve this food truck when every other food truck has had the exact same option to open year-round. I've said it before, perhaps this is something that is on us, and we should have looked at that before to make sure that if we don't want food trucks open year-round, we set that out from the very beginning that you cannot do that. I'm open to that option going forward. I'm not open to that option for this very specific application because I don't think that is fair for the business owners who have chosen to do business different than a brick and mortar building. Everyone chooses how they would like to operate their business and how they would like to open their business, and these folks just decided to not have a building to work out of, but rather a food truck.
Yeah, just sort of as a way to prove that sometimes the decisions that we make are not premeditated in any way. I was very much leaning towards the Councillor MacDougall and Deputy Mayor Snow and Councillor McColeman's reasoning. I was on the fence, and I really think that Councillor Cameron makes a very valid point in that every other mobile food vendor up to this point, those were all for 12 calendar months, and to me that's the deciding factor, and that in order to stay fair, at least up until this point, for me is to support that application and perhaps going forward revisit that. But no, just interesting how we sort of arrive at decisions sometime, and I think that's important to state. Yeah.
Sure, I think it's been a fruitful conversation for sure, but I think when you're looking at transparency and fairness, I think that since right now they're able to, and like we've said, there's, yeah, everyone else has been able to up to this point. Yeah, it doesn't seem that it would be fair to just say, no, it can't happen right now. Especially if you're looking at perception of fairness as well, that we want to make sure that it's both fair and the perception of everybody being treated equal. I think that's really extremely important that we make those decisions, so, in that manner.
Yeah, I might as well jump in. I have no problem with the food truck, no problem with the location. I do have an issue with it being outside of May to October. And I personally don't think I'm being unfair by limiting that, because I don't, other than these new folks, there's nobody else ever came, I don't believe, in January or December or February looking to have a license. And that's why we probably never thought of the issue before that, is because most people were coming, you know, you'd get it in April and their intent was to start mid-May or whatever the date was. So for me, I have no problem with it, but I certainly believe that all the food vehicles or whatever should be a May to October business.
Yeah, sorry, and that's sort of where my head was at as well, Councillor Morrison. Mike, to your point, you had mentioned, and I don't think the intent or my comments were to treat anybody unfairly. Your point is well taken, and I sort of agree with that. But I guess the other ones that we currently have operating, they would have came and applied. I just asked JP, like. But we don't have I don't know if we have any, I'm sure we have people that are currently approved to operate a food truck, but they're expiring probably in May, June, their application, right? It's for a year. So if we're going to look at changing this is probably the time, as this one's gonna go from January to the following January. I do think there is a window or a time frame for food trucks to operate. And if you decide that's your window year after year, that's fine, or you decide it's, you know, a viable business and you move into brick and mortar. I would hate to take away, that commercial opportunity for people, but it also affects current year-round operations. So I would think that moving forward, we could start looking at those options for future applications, because I don't think any of the current applicants they will have to apply again this calendar year, because they all would have been approved. I don't recall one over the summer. It was late spring when we had the last one that I recall. But be approved upstairs too. Yeah, right. So we can figure. I think it's worth a long-term discussion. I do have concerns with year-round.
Councillor MacDougall and Councillor Hammond.
Is this something that we should send to the bylaw governance, or to review the bylaw? I would prefer to see it go there. It doesn't change the water and the beans for this right now, but.
I know that there are a number of items that I had mentioned earlier in my report that they are working on to bring to the March meeting.
Yeah.
But certainly through CAOJP, we could, you know, make sure that they're aware of having it on the calendar to maybe do some look at that policy.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I just had a question. This specific food truck, is this a brand-new application, or is this the one that was also operating at Lockhart's that we had already approved at one point?
This is a new applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to Councillor MacDougall's point, once the council goes through the process, the renewals are completed upstairs on the third floor. It is, they don't come back to council for a renewal.
I did just want to state that I did think it was the same one at Lockhart's. The one at Lockhart's was operating outside of those hours, the months that we have all stated. It is no longer there. I don't think it is, but it was operating outside of those. What was it? what do we say, May to whatever it was. Just for future reference, there are food trucks that do operate outside of those seasonal times, and they have been, and I just want to be on the record saying that going forward.
Okay, thank you, Council. So I'm just going to separate two things here. One is a desire to send to bylaw and governance. This should not be complicated to make a bylaw and governance to consider and then bring to council recommendations to adjust Section 13 of the licensing bylaw to include seasonality as a consideration. As I think everyone seems good with that, so we can make a note on the record. The second will be going obviously to a vote. I've always said, I'll say my thing, I'll say it really quickly. I'd certainly, I agree with Councillor Cameron. I agree with the rest of you as well in terms of those who have an issue with the season. We've approved a number of food trucks who all have the ability to open tomorrow. There is always, I think it's always important to have procedural fairness for any applicant, and sometimes you get caught realizing that, geez, we wouldn't have thought about it that way, but at the same time, if you say no to one of them today, then any of the approved applicants could open tomorrow, and anyhow, I just think that it's within the rules, but obviously there's other considerations as deemed appropriate. Council can have any other considerations they want, and they're told all the flexibility you want on these ones. So with that, I will. Resolution COS 26-003, moved by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor Trenholm, is on the floor. I'll now call for a vote if there's no further comments, questions, or statements from member of council. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed? And the nays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have it. 5 to 2, nays 2. Is that Councillor Doiron? You were a yay. Oh, sorry. So that is 4 to 3. The nays have it. The application is denied.
And just to confirm, an absent is not a yes. Just so people are wondering, if you're not here, if you're here and you choose not to vote, it's a yay. Correct? But if you're absent, it's not counted.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Council, for that. And now we move on to item 5, Resolution COS 24-004, Fire Hall Tender. Deputy Mayor Snow bringing forward the resolution.
Thank you, Your Worship. Resolution COS 26-004, moved by myself, and if I can get a seconder, Councillor MacDougall. Resolution, whereas the City of Summerside issued a call for tenders for the City of Summerside Fire Hall Station Number 1 on October 23rd, 2025, and whereas the following tenders were received. Bidders, McLean Construction Limited, $9,724,000, excluding HST. Bid Form 2, including HST, and totaled $11,182,600. Fitzgerald and Snow, 2010 Limited, $11,567,000. Wilmac Construction, $12,039,023.75. Wellington Construction, $12,255,000. RCS Construction, $12,315,350. WMM Limited, $12,564,000. Lindsay Construction Limited, $12,763,850. And whereas staff conducted the required review of all bids for completeness, accuracy, and compliance with the tender documents and the City of Summerside tendering policy. And whereas the bid submitted by McLean Construction Limited did not meet the mandatory requirements of tender documents and was therefore materially non-compliant. And whereas the bid submitted by Fitzgerald and Snow 2010 Limited was complete and compliant with the tender documents and represents the lowest compliant bid received in the amount of $11,567,000, HST included. Now therefore be it resolved that Council award the contract for the City of Summerside Fire Hall Station Number 1 to Fitzgerald and Snow 2010 Limited, as it was the lowest compliant bid received. This bears the recommendation of Committee of Council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snow. Resolution COS 26-004, moved by Councillor Snow, seconded by Councillor MacDougall, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Seen and hear, almost. Councillor MacDougall.
I'm really pleased to second this motion because this has been on the books a long time, and I know there's a lot of people around that thought I was against a fire hall. Not against the fire hall. I was always against building something and not knowing how we were going to pay for it. I wouldn't do that at my house, and I'm not going to do it for the residents. I am very comfortable with the resolution and very comfortable with the position the city's in right now, and it's long overdue and it's time. So thanks.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. I know a lot of people probably had their doubts that this would happen, and some of those people are probably across the street. So it's a really nice, feels really good to be able to be a part of it and to see it happening for real.
Sure. I just want to point out the fact that I really appreciate that when I see the bidders, the bid numbers, I think that's when you're looking at transparency. I can say I really sincerely appreciate that was the decision that we made. The bid number and the firm, that pleases me a lot. Thank you.
I'm very happy to support it simply because of the labor and the work that has gone into it over many years. It hasn't been a snap decision. I think there were times that various councils were maybe disappointed that we couldn't do it at a certain time, but I think we have planned it as a council over many years to be fiscally responsible, and the timing is really good. I also think that the residents have followed this for a long time, and they really see it coming to fruition and taking the time to do it right. So good things come to those who wait. So I think it'll be a really amazing project to see happen for the community.
I may as well just share my feelings too, since everyone else is. As a councillor, I'm very fortunate that I didn't have to wait as long as other people. But coming in and doing a tour with Chief Ron and seeing the state of our current Station 1 fire hall was very eye-opening to me, and something that I've been pushing for as well as the rest of the council for a long time. And I'm very happy to have staff who have figured out a way for us to be able to do this at this time as well, because without them, we would still be trying to figure out how we're going to afford to pay for it and how we're doing all that. So thank you to everyone, and I'm very excited to see things get done.
All right, seeing no further comments, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes unanimously. Let's go. Good stuff, Chief. With that, we'll move into our in-camera, and I understand Mr. Key had forgot something, so has to go get it.